What you just saw is the North Korean army showcasing its skills for an imminent war, should Putin need help against Ukraine. Since February 2022, when Vladimir Putin decided to launch a military campaign against Ukraine, the world has entered a state of fragility not seen since the Cold War. Any political misstep could deepen the small rift between the West and the East, creating a profound tremor that could plunge the planet into the old abyss of nuclear terror. With Russian forces advancing on Ukraine relentlessly and conflicts in the Middle East seemingly on the brink of explosion every day, a new concern is rising in the East. North Korea, led by the unyielding dictator Kim Jong-un, who positions himself as the great enemy of the United States, is desperately trying to form military alliances with the Russian Federation and the People's Republic of China. Although both nations have their tensions with North America and NATO, they had previously preferred to keep the North Koreans at bay. But times are changing, and Russia is advancing in various collaborative agreements with North Korea that worry and alarm the Western Bloc led by US forces. But could North Korea help Russia end the war against Ukraine? What would happen if they joined forces to conquer the territory governed by Vladimir Zelensky? Join us in a new video from Military Force to find out.
극초음속 활공의 비심과 드높은 신심과 전투적 열광으로 세차게 끌어본지고 있었다.
The end of the war in Ukraine still seems far off, and all indications are that the chances of Zelensky's troops repelling the Russian invasion are growing slimmer each day. Vladimir Putin is pushing the western frontier with an iron fist, and although the United States and the European Union are trying to support the Ukrainians in withstanding the Russian bear's onslaught, the winds of victory seem to be blowing towards the east. After the Ukrainian counteroffensive in the Donbass region failed disastrously, few hopes remain for the men of Kiev. The long-awaited shipments of arms decrease each month as the West fears incurring a massive political cost within its own structures. Joe Biden, pressured by a possible electoral defeat against Donald Trump, who opposes continued U.S. debt for sending arms to Ukraine, is faltering in his efforts to support Zelensky. Meanwhile, NATO's European member countries make grand shows of support in rhetoric, but dare not confront Putin's troops in practice. Amidst this tumultuous scenario that seems to divide the planet into two poles, reminiscent of the worst times of the Cold War, Russia is exponentially increasing its support for North Korea. It is important to highlight that the most terrifying aspect is that North Korea's main military asset is its nuclear arsenal, which is technically prohibited by current arms treaties. However, Kim Jong-un has made it clear that he cares little for international laws, and if any organization sought to take away his precious nuclear warheads, they would have to wrest them from his cold, dead hands. In this case, it would be particularly difficult, as no one doubts that the North Korean dictator is capable of causing nuclear devastation before losing his own life. The United States and the Russian Federation possess the largest nuclear arsenals in the world, but in both cases, the decision to use them depends on the president as well as the strategic commands of each country, and it is discretionary. No head of state could start a nuclear war on a whim. We cannot be so sure of this when talking about North Korea, as Kim Jong-un is regarded as an authority closer to a god than to a Western political leader. Perhaps with just a word or a simple gesture, he could order the launch of about 50 nuclear warheads. This is why the West is so uneasy, as the Russian Federation is one of the few countries showing some diplomatic sympathy towards North Korea. However, this gesture from Vladimir Putin, once seen as another of his rebellious attitudes towards NATO, has deepened over the years. Some experts believe that if an open alliance were formed between Kim Jong-un and Putin, North Korea could attack South Korea, taking advantage of China's focus on Taiwan, thereby creating significant confusion in the West and disrupting strategic deployments. An outbreak of multiple conflicts in the Indo-Pacific region could completely destabilize NATO's operational framework in the area, not to mention the problematic scenario in the Middle East, where the United States is trying to avoid direct involvement. Sending arms to assist multiple countries simultaneously could lead the Americans into a severe infrastructural predicament, as it is unlikely that nations such as Ukraine, Taiwan, or South Korea could bear the cost of a multi-billion-dollar debt for weapons and logistics. However, public opinion has already raised concerns that North Korea may have been indirectly involved in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. In fact, by the end of 2022, with the war in Ukraine at its most violent point, the United States reported that North Korea was supplying Russian troops with weaponry, especially to the Wagner Group, a mercenary army involved in assassination tasks and investigated for crimes against humanity. There has also been speculation that Russia acquired defensive batteries designed in North Korea, such as the KN-09 and the more advanced KN-25 rocket systems, powerful launchers considered the North Korean equivalent of the HIMARS. These were showcased in a 2023 promotional video featuring Kim Jong-un himself supervising the launches.
전등가를 폭음이 천지를 뒤흔드는 속에 서슬프런 강초신들에서 용암 마냥 거세차게 뿜어져 향해 힘차게 날아갔습니다.
All this raw power was highly attractive to Putin, although the KN-23 ballistic missile system was also considered. These would be deployed in Russian territory and used for defensive strategies, although no evidence of North Korean weaponry was found during the Ukrainian counteroffensive in Donbass, leading to the belief that the deal has not yet been executed. On the other hand, Russia does not rule out the possibility of seeking North Korean help if the war extends beyond its operational horizon. Although it seems very difficult for Kiev to turn the situation around, the Russian Federation has lost thousands of soldiers during the conflict, along with key armaments such as war tanks, artillery batteries, and combat aircraft. But what could North Korea provide to Russia to assist in the conflict? Firstly, we will rule out the nuclear option, as it is extremely unlikely that any nation would choose to use its atomic power in a conflict as limited as the one unfolding in Ukraine. The only possibility for this to happen would be an intentional effort to trigger a third world war, which seems practically impossible given the international circumstances. Nonetheless, North Korea has a thriving military industry. As in a hyper-militaristic dictatorship, there is not much else to occupy people with. Russia could take advantage of part of the extensive arsenal of 6,000 North Korean war tanks, primarily consisting of indigenous Pakpung-ho tanks derived from classic Soviet models like the T-88 and the Chonmaho, another local creation based on the T-62M. Both tanks were developed in secrecy, and few details are known in depth, so most military specialists assume they possess the main features of the tanks they were based on. The rest of the fleet consists of Soviet-origin tanks acquired through agreements with the People's Republic of China or the Soviet Union, such as the T-62M. Certain leaks have revealed that in 2009, North Korea completed the design of an advanced armored vehicle known as the Seongun 9-Womphib, which is still under development. The North Korean military has also shown a prototype they are working on, which is a native iteration of the Russian T-14 Armata, known as the M2020. Another asset North Korea possesses is its fierce soldiers, whom you have already seen displaying their martial skills, discipline, and bravery at the beginning of this video. Kim Jong-un has approximately 1 million men willing to give their lives for him and to carry out his orders to the fullest extent. They are typically seen parading in Pyongyang with AK-47 assault rifles, though given North Korea's extreme military secrecy, it would not be surprising if they have more modern weaponry they prefer not to show, or even if, in the event of assisting in Ukraine, they were armed with the AK-12, the current standard rifle of the Russian army. And of course, when talking about North Korea, it is impossible not to mention its artillery. Just listen to how it sounds. Kim Jong-un's forces are equipped with hundreds of howitzers and self-propelled artillery, ranging from 120 to 152 mm. This firepower dates back to the Cold War era, but when combined with the previously mentioned rocket systems like the KN-09, KN-15, and KN-25, it is clear they are more than capable of inflicting considerable damage from a distance. Russia is not lacking in long-range power, with examples such as the Tu-A65 Mestier-B, the classic Tu-S5 Gyatsint S, and the more modern Tu-S35 Koalitsiya SV, which saw their combat debut against Kiev. According to some specialized media, while Russia has lost hundreds of tanks and artillery pieces to Ukrainian forces, these losses represent less than 25% of their reserve arsenal, so it would be unusual for Putin to rely on North Korea in this regard. In terms of aerial capabilities, it is not worth considering, as North Korea's air force pales in comparison to either the Russian or Ukrainian forces. They possess old Soviet-era MiGs, which are inadequate compared to the extensive Russian arsenal and would be more of a hindrance than a real help. Although North Korea is believed to be trying to rebuild its air force by modernizing its existing aircraft, their main focus is on creating air-to-air and surface-to-air weapon systems. There is also speculation that China might attempt to strengthen its fleet with some budget-friendly fighters. However, Russia already boasts the cutting edge of current aerial combat with the Su-57, formidable flying machines that not only possess advanced features, but can intimidate enemies with the hissing sound of their engines, cutting through the sky like a razor-sharp blade. I challenge you to listen to this sound without getting chills. In the naval arena, the only notable asset Kim Jong-un has is a handful of nuclear submarines. While these might be intriguing in a nuclear conflict analysis, it's unlikely they would be deployed in Ukraine unless they find a way to convert them into tank-like vehicles. However, it's interesting to note that North Korea is keenly interested in expanding its naval fleet. Although China was expected to be its main ally in this endeavor, Kim Jong-un surprised many in 2023 when he visited the Russian Federation and requested to inspect the frigate Marshal Shaposhnikov. Just look at the North Korean leader's interest, while Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu shows him the ship. Although North Korea has an interesting arsenal that could be used in a war, it is unlikely to offer Russia anything beyond soldiers or ammunition. Traversing the continental territory of China and Russia to reach the battlefield would involve transportation and energy costs that Vladimir Putin would likely find impractical. In this regard, quick deliveries requiring minimal commitment from the Russians would be ideal. Despite the significant losses of soldiers on the Western Front, it seems that Russia will be able to reach the end of the war without relying on assistance from another country. If North Korea is to play a role in the new international order that promises to divide the world once again, it will likely have to confront its historic enemy, South Korea. The last clash between the two nations occurred in February 2024, when North Korean forces fired about 200 rounds of artillery and rockets into South Korean territorial waters. Although the Korean People's Army clarified that it was merely a training exercise, the incident heightened tensions between the two countries. The geopolitical landscape is in a particularly fragile state, with the potential defeat of Ukraine, Iran's involvement in the Middle Eastern crisis, and China's willingness to deal with Taiwan's independence by force, leaving the United States completely disoriented. Europe is slowly preparing for what seems to be a decade of proxy wars, where Western and Eastern superpowers might not confront each other directly, but will fight battles in countries with less defensive capability, which could be crucial in a future global positioning strategy. For now, the alliance between North Korea and the Russian Federation appears to be merely a military flirtation. However, if it deepens, it could change the international geopolitical landscape forever, and perhaps even the fate of the entire planet. Thank you very much for staying with us until the end. If you enjoyed our content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.